to what we're going to be doing here today, and I'll let Dr. Smita and Priyanka introduce themselves. We're all part of the Proactive for Her team. So with office hours, a big part of what we're trying to do as Proactive for Her is just essentially bring to light some topics that, you know, may not necessarily be talked about, topics that we've realized through our doctors who work with us that, you know, these are topics where a lot of people have questions. There's a little bit of confusion. There's a bit of an emotional element to play as well. And so essentially we started office hours as a way for people to come out, ask their questions in a very comfortable, safe environment, and have our doctors sort of lead the entire session and answer any and all questions that you guys have, as well as sometimes break down things that might be a little bit more scientific and a little bit more confusing, to make sure they're digestible for you to understand. And with that, I will pass over to Dr. Smita, who can introduce herself, and then to Priyanka.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Aisha. I think that was a very warm note to welcome everybody, I'm sure, on behalf of Proactive for Her. This is Dr. Smita here, and I do have my dear friend, Dr. Priyanka, who I believe should go hand in hand with the talk that I'm going to give, because we all believe in a holistic health pathway wherein nutrition is the crux of all illness and wellness. So basically, I think it's very essential we hit it off on that note. So I think, are we good to start our conversation?
We can get started, yes.
So can we share the screen now?
Yeah. I will share my screen.
So most of us are worried. I think the last thing most of us are worried in 20s and 30s, early 30s, is fertility. We are not literally looking at it. But the reason why we are emphasizing on it is we get a good window to decide as to how you can make your path towards maintaining your fertility, preserving your fertility, and making optimal use of it. It also paves the way for good reproductive health, which is very essential. And it is very absolutely necessary to know what are the changes that you go through as time passes by. Yeah, so we're going to decode the fertility changes in 20s and 30s. Yeah. Can we move on to the next slide? So basically, we're going to, the objectives of this discussion are we're going to just discuss about what is fertility, what are the correlations of age and fertility, basic things about the, jargon that most of the doctors use in terms of, the anatomical changes, the physiological changes, and hormonal changes that a woman goes through. And most importantly, the factors which affect fertility, preconceptional and reproductive health, and how we can optimize these situations to the best of our outcomes. Yeah, so I think we will flow on to this conversation as we go further. Yeah, can we move on to the next slide? So basically, why should we talk about fertility? I mean, most of us are in the bracket where, I do see patients. I think I would say I could relate to 9 on 10 of my patients saying these statements like, I'm not sure about having children. I'm getting older. I just need to know a little bit more about my fertility so that I know when I should be making the most crucial decision of my life. Or there are a lot of women who say, I want to have a child, but not yet. But I want to make things ready on my behalf, because women want to know what they should be doing, and they want to empower themselves with the decision making. I mean, rather than being forced upon on the decision due to the circumstances or due to the family pressure, I think it's time women move out of the bracket, take the decision to, lead their lives and lead the family. Because yes, a well-aware woman can lead the whole family and the whole nation. So we all know about that. So the other kind of statements that we do relate with is, I know I don't want to have children. I do get a lot of couples walking in and they're like, Doc, look, we are very clear. We are happy with each other. We have decided not to have children, which is absolutely fine. I mean, each one of us, have our priorities in life and choices in life. And it's good to come out clear with it with your partner. So they do say that, but what if I change my mind is something which none of us can answer, right? So none of us know how we are going to respond in the future to a certain situation. So it's a good thing to know along with your partner, if you can, to decide as to what could be the possible options if in the future you do change your mind. So that's the most important thing, that, we all are clear as to what we want in life. So why do we need to talk about it? I mean, like today we are all talking because the best form of preparation is a conversation. So it all begins with a conversation. So this conversation could just begin in your house with your family members, with your mother or your siblings, so that it gives you some information about what was the age at menopause, what were the other fertility issues the women of the family faced, or what were the gynecological issues like menstrual health, because most of these have a hereditary pattern, we do know. So it does help to have a conversation with your family. And the next thing is you could have a conversation with your peers who are in the same situation, like, your friends and your colleagues, which is very important because all of you are in the kind of in a same socio-environmental, work environment and social environment. And most of you, I think, would be, kind of supported by each other. It's very essential to have your peer groups and discussions. And on this behalf, I think Aisha would want to share a bit as to why Proactive for Her is coming up with certain options for women where they can engage on platforms with similar like-minded people and kind of debate the pros and cons of any health concern. Would you want to say about it, Aisha?
Absolutely. So I think this is a very good place to introduce our support groups at Proactive for Her. Support groups were very much created with some of our expert therapists and psychologists, as well as psychiatrics that we have within our Proactive for Her family. And the idea is that, we started hearing a lot of stories of people who we felt would benefit from a social circle where they could share their kind of experiences, share their thoughts, share their feelings, as well as have a space where they can, talk about some different, ideas that came to mind, and different choices that they learned. And so based on that, support groups is a new thing that we're introducing at Proactive for Her. And we're starting with two support groups. One is for folks trying to conceive. And the idea is that you may be already kind of on your conception journey. You may have already faced some challenges. You may be just thinking about conception. And essentially the idea is join this community, chat with people, interact with people who are similar to you and maybe going through a similar experience. The second is around miscarriage. This is mainly for people who are navigating, maybe a recent miscarriage, or, your partner or somebody or something like that, to somebody who's going through something and you want to understand the best way to support them. So what I'll do is, if this is of interest to anybody here, I'll drop a link just for an interest form in case this is something that you think you could benefit from, or even, somebody else who you think might benefit from this, feel free to share the link to them. And the idea is let's create, these judgment-free spaces where people can come and share.
Yeah, I think that was the start of a great concept where we wanted to, bring women on a single platform and to share their concerns on, common concerns like, fertility, trying to conceive, miscarriage. We want to increase this window to a lot more arenas where women can utilize these conversations. We are open to inputs from all of you, and I'm sure you can reach out to Aisha to, help us build it better for you. Yeah. So the last and the most important conversation, what I missed out was with your partner. So it does help discussing with your partner about your reproductive choices, because it not only paves the way for a good health and good lifestyle for both of you, but also keeps you in track about your reproductive timelines and concerns. So can we move on to the next slide, Aisha? Yeah. So basically, why conversations also help, it helps break the stigma, especially in a society like the Indian society, where, people taboo it off and they want to push, decision making, and they want to just yield to family pressures. I think that's the reason we need to break the stigma. I mean, Proactive for Her has always been having this niche area and breaking stigmas about women's health. And we want to empower women with decision making in the most crucial times of her life, like, we are pitching into the postpartum phase, the pregnancy support as well. And now we want to break the stigma on decision making onto fertility concerns, or when the woman has to choose to plan her family. So, so these social taboos are something which need to be overcome. This conversation doesn't just help you, but it could also help, the future generations to decide on their reproductive choices and come out more openly with the society. So once we kind of come out openly about it, I'm sure the younger generations are very smart to learn things and catch up on things, and we wouldn't even have to, raise the issues multiple times. And this not only gives way to a good community, but also to a good future for the entire nation. Yeah. Can we move on to the next slide? So the most important question, can age impact fertility? Briefly speaking, we all know age can definitely impact fertility. But to what extent and to what concerns? I mean, I'm just under 30. Do I really need to worry about fertility? Yes, definitely yes on that, because most women think that below 30, they need not worry about fertility, or because they're still in their early phases of the reproductive age group, and would prioritize on professional life or other priorities like education. So I would say this is the right time. Like we have had our earlier videos on the first gynec consult, I think I would love to bring the impact on the age of fertility. So the first fertility consult, I think just when you've finished your undergrad, that is the right time for you to know about your first fertility consult, because what are the prefixed kind of complications that you have, or hormonal imbalances that you have. What are your fixed set of habits which could influence your reproductive health, and you're in a situation to understand where you're heading, what is your priority for the next 5 years or 10 years, so that you can put your timelines in a well balanced manner. So we all know that the reproductive age group fertility declines by the age of 32, starts declining, and there's a steep fall beyond 35, typically beyond 37. And so if you look at the staggering numbers in the last 30 years, the fertility rates of women aged 20 to 24 has dropped by close to 50%. Now, we all know why this is happening, because, women are more stressed, more exposed to complex life scenarios, professionally, personally, and they're living away from their families, and which kind of adds to their complicates the situation. So the mental health and the overall nutritional aspects of her diet are also lacking, because women are spending most of the time studying or working and not emphasizing on their overall health. I think this is the time that you need to also bring in healthy habits in terms of your diet, get your nutritionist advice. I'm sure Priyanka will help you all with that. So I would say, just like you walk out for a graduation program after your undergrads, I would say that is when you also need to plan your personal health. And I do see a lot of youngsters coming in at 22 and saying, Doc, I just want to run through these tests. Just tell me what I need to be doing. And I think they're doing an awesome job on that. At 22, I would vaguely remember being in the med school studying hard day and night, but least emphasis on our personal health, or sleep hygiene or things like that. So, but I would say there's a great awareness on this, on these aspects in this generation. So what we need to do is also get around in your early 20s, get your nutritional advice, get your sleep hygiene in place, very essential. A lot of youngsters coming in with lack of sleep. I only sleep 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. I think that is very, very essential, because most of your repair hormones are active between 11 to 2 a.m. So you need to get at least 50% of sleep during that time. Typically, if I'm not wrong, most of us are sleeping after 2. And I think that change has to come in, because your body is prepared, and there's a diurnal clock which works, based on which the hormones are released. So I think it's very essential you put these things in place earlier on, and that kind of solves half of your problems, be it with regard to reproductive health, overall health, or mental health. So I think this should be the crux. After your graduation, the first thing to do would be these, to emphasize in your early 20s. So we've also seen that the fertility rates for couples have been as high as 1 in